Happy Friendsversary.
Oh, there it is.
Smokin and Toastin. And there we are. Share now public. Yay! All right. Well, greetings, Facebook Live. All right. I'm just going to...
I feel like they put this with the headset on.
What's that?
You're gonna do
oh,
it?
yeah,
Okay,
I'll do headset.
Like, if you're not doing the headset,
no, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's funny. I don't do it when we're out of the studio at all. I don't like doing it when we're out of the studio, but in the studio, for some reason, it makes you feel better. So, all right, I am ready when you are, Adam. And we're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. It's a brand new year. It is show number 70, and welcome to it. We're brought to you, by the way, by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1914 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Road trip still planned to Fort Worth. It looks like it'll probably wind up being February. And one of the reasons is because Ian, our boy Ian, is on assignment. So he's going to be out of pocket for a few weeks. So we'll have some special guests on the show. But I just wanted to open by saying, don't worry, Ian fans. He's not gone. He'll be back. It's just a short assignment that's got him busy for just a little while, and he shall return. So we're looking forward to that. In the meantime, though, I'm thrilled to have a very capable and knowledgeable and even kind of decent-looking co-host in the studio today.
I try. I'm no Ian, but I try.
Kris, welcome. Kris Hart is here from the Houston Whiskey Social. Now, I wanted to ask you about this because whenever I go to make the notes for the show and I go, oh, it's Kris Hart from, I never know whether to put that you're from Houston Whiskey Social or Houston Bourbon Society.
A little bit of both.
So what are the two things, and explain the difference to me? So
the difference really, and they're very interwoven. So we started the Houston Whiskey Social, me and my partner Yawante, about 3 years ago. And it was just it's a big festival, and right now, and we're putting together some details and some fine touches to this year's festival. But the Houston Bourbon Society is a Facebook group now. A pretty decent size one, about 2,500 folks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Here locally in Houston, and it's just there's a big bourbon community here, and anyone can join. It's open. There's no cost or anything, but it's just a group of people to come together, have a drink, share a photo of you drinking, find, if you're looking for something around town, the group is, full of help in finding something, as well as an overwhelming amount of information. Every whiskey person you've had on the show so far is in the group. They've been...
Really?
Yeah, I mean...
and you do tons of get-togethers, too, right? Now, I started to say events, but it's almost more like just hangouts, right?
They're called bottle shares. The Man Cave is always, which, rest in peace, is no longer here. But
I missed that place already.
Yeah. Now they're back as Maduro's. They're under new ownership, but it's we get together all the time, and everyone brings a couple of bottles like what you see here. And I saw you got a bottle limo.
I do.
I saw
that.
Yes. I thought there was someone else here for a minute.
No.
But we'll we just get together, and I mean, God, we've grown so fast, and I'm flying out to Kentucky tonight. To pick out our next couple of barrels. So
now the barrels that you pick out, are these for your bottle shares and your get-togethers, or are they for the Whiskey Social?
A little bit of both. Actually, this trip is one of each. So what we do is, every barrel is like a snowflake, right? Every snowflake's different.
Yes.
So every barrel's different. And we fly out to Kentucky. We just got back from Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. We went down there and picked the first, the second for Texas, but our first, the first group to get a barrel of Jack Daniel's Barrel Strength, which is awesome. They just started the program. We were lucky enough to get invited to have one. But now we're flying out today. I'm going to go pick out a Four Roses for... I'm actually naming it after my wife. Good golly, Miss Molly. But
very nice.
The Four Roses barrel is for us. I actually brought a local pick of Four Roses, so you can I figure we might talk about that. So
very nice.
This was done by Poison Girl, but we'll get back to that. But yeah, and then we're doing an MB Rollin pick, which will be for the Bourbon Society. So MB Rollin is a local mom and pop grain to glass bourbon whiskey in Kentucky that doesn't have distribution here in Texas. So I made a few phone calls and I made it my mission to bring them here because they're great. So they now are going through the final steps of getting final state distribution for the state, and it's because of the Bourbon Society. It's because of the impact that group's had, and I'm very proud of a city that was once not considered a viable whiskey market is now the second largest group in the nation.
I was just suddenly it's a big deal.
Yeah. So it's the last 3 years. Houston's changed quite a bit for whiskey. So
now the Houston Whiskey Social, that was the event that Ian and I came to with you guys. Oh my God, we had such a good time. That was and we talked a lot about that in the weeks afterwards. That's how those events are supposed to be done. I mean, you guys really did a great job. It felt like an event, like a bit of a spectacle, but it also had this very homey, like you could just walk up and talk to any of the guys. It was very, they would talk whiskey with you, cigars with you. It was really an enjoyable evening, and it didn't have that. How can I say this? It didn't have that shuffling you through the line feeling that some of these kind of events can have. I mean, that would be one of my coming back from the Big Smoke in Las Vegas, which we did in November. If it wasn't such a big deal, you could make a case that it felt a little bit like a shuffling you through the line sort of event. You know what I mean?
There's been, again, on top of us not being a great market for whiskey, we've also not been a great market for whiskey events. So the whole goal, and it wasn't just me and Yoante's goal, we got with there's a lot of locals who have helped and has supported us, and you and Ian included. You guys have been extremely supportive, and it really isn't for us. It's for this getting to sit across from somebody. And you know what's great about these events is it doesn't feel like a shuffle, and everyone kind of sees each other daily online in this, the Facebook group.
So you're like, hey.
And then when you finally a lot of people run into each other at the event and think, oh, that's what you look like.
Hey, did you try this? Yeah, right, exactly.
And that's what we love about it, man. It's just been tremendous.
Well, I'm hearing now. Tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I'm hearing that there might be a Kris and Yoante show of some sort in the works. Is that something you can talk about?
Not something I can talk about yet, but there is something that we're wanting to do. I'm a big podcast listener. Mm-hmm. I love Joe Rogan and those types of podcasts. I think a similar style to this, but a little bit more inebriated. I
don't know if you've heard every show, my friend.
But I think it'd be a lot of fun. So we're definitely talking about it. It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you this: if people are interested, we will definitely bring you the information as it says. So you can come back here to find out where to go to hear your show. So I appreciate it. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things, in the old school, I basically grew up in radio broadcasting. And in the old days of radio, it was always competition. You always hated the guy across the street, And it's not really like that with in the world of podcasting and doing these kind of shows. You're almost like brothers in arms in a way. You know what I mean?
It doesn't. I 100% agree with you. There's a lot of apprehension in Houston when it comes to sometimes bars being too close together, and you're both new. Radio shows, whiskey, brands, but there's really. And a great example of this is the whiskey ambassadors here in Houston. Every brand representative for every major, whiskey brand here in town, they all know each other.
Right.
They all drink together.
Right, exactly.
There's no animosity there. There's plenty to go around. And believe it or not, there's quite a few people in the Bourbon Society who are sitting on north of 500 bottles at the house. So there's more than enough to go around for everybody.
So this is the thing. In the event of the zombie apocalypse, which I like to be prepared for.
I think I know what you're about to
regardless. These are the guys you want to know because they are the guys that will have the bottles, right?
100%.
Yeah, that's exactly
Alan
right.
Richards, I'm talking to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Right. Yeah, you know where to go. Well, you've lined up several very interesting looking things for us to taste today. I have brought a bottle as well. I brought some beers, and so there's going to be some interesting tasting with you and I on the show today.
100%. I'm actually going to start as soon as possible.
Very good. We'll look forward to that. Wanted to mention that across the holidays, I did get a handful of really interesting cigar gifts, and I even got a few whiskey gifts too, which is kind of cool. But one of the cigar gifts that I got was one that I wanted to mention that I smoked a couple of days ago, and I just wanted to kind of talk about it because I'd never talked about this particular cigar or this brand before. It's the Nat-Ciccio. Liga number 4, Aniversario 1965 Churchill. And if it sounds like maybe they kind of stole pieces of names from several of the cigars. They kind of did. Yeah, they kind of did. But it was a really nice, really beautiful box press cigar made with an Ecuadorian Habano seed wrapper, Nicaraguan binder and fillers. It had one of the pigtail caps, which I really like because they're the ones that are easy if you have forgotten your punch or your cutter. The pigtail, you can just twist it right off. The interesting thing about this cigar that I hadn't really seen or didn't remember smoking one like this before, was that the foot was actually enclosed by the wrapper leaf. It was actually, the wrapper leaf went all the way around the foot, so you had to burn that before you could draw through the cigar, which was kind of an interesting adjustment. So,
there's quite a few cigars who do the shaggy foot style.
The shaggy foot, and I'm used to that, but this one was actually capped sealed, on the bottom. Yeah, so it was. So when you first when you try to do the pre-light draw, you don't get anything because it's capped on the bottom. So I didn't clip it. I lit it, and that's the way it started smoking. And it smoked really smooth all the way down, toasty right off the bat with woody and nutty initial flavors. Cocoa flavors kind of emerged as it smoked. A very pleasant, nutty profile all the way through. It wasn't super complex, but I did really enjoy the specific flavor balance, so I really wasn't wanting it to change up. So I smoked it down to the nub. I enjoyed it very, very much. Superb construction. It smoked evenly, smoothly, all the way down. It's about a $5 cigar. I would give it a 6 for price to quality. So there you go. So we got a lot of tasting to do. I want to start our tasting in the next segment. Plus, we have some things to talk about. The Take Craft Back campaign has folded, so we'll tell you how well they did and what's going on with that. We'll talk about a couple of different things, including the fact that Cigar Aficionado magazine has named their best cigars of 2017. So we'll talk about that list a little bit and what's coming up in that, and we're going to do some tasting. What did you pour there?
Sorry, I was listening to you and I couldn't help myself. So. 4 roses.
All right, so we'll start with that in the next segment. You're listening to Smokin' and Toastin', and as I mentioned at the top of the show, Ian is on assignment. He will be back in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, big thanks to Kris Hart for guest hosting on the show. All right, we'll be right back at Smokin' and Toastin'.
I brought you a whiskey glass. So you provide the beer glass, I'll provide the whiskey glass.
I'll pull our first beer out for next segment.
15 minutes in between, right?
Oh yeah, we don't necessarily take that much time in between. We often do, but we shouldn't. So I'm trying to just trying to get us to move into the next segment a little faster than we used to.
Let's see if I can.
There's no specific amount of time between. So
this is the local whiskey bar, Poison Girl. That's a really fun one.
So now I want to talk about Poison Girl because we had a discussion with somebody across the holidays about them.
Good or bad?
Was a good discussion. We were talking about. I have not been there in a while. I used to go there back in my single days, just as a place to hang out and drink, and but I didn't remember it being so much of a whiskey bar back then.
It's always got that dive feeling, but it's got their owner Scott is and their lead purchaser Brian are tremendous whiskey guys. So they've some of the more legendary picks. I don't know if you're familiar with Secondary Market, but they've got a few legendary Four Roses picks that are trading for some pretty good cash.
Wow. That's very cool.
Yeah, have you never had any of the Parish Brewing stuff?
No.
I think you're going to be excited.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's it looks like orange juice and tastes like grapefruit juice.
Nice.
It's really good. They're I'll go over it when we get on air, but when they announced the release date, they had a line starting at 8 p.m. the night before, and the first 10 people each bought 30 cases of it. It was half the batch gone immediately. It's a highly coveted beer.
Wow, that's very cool. Beer is really experiencing the long tail right now. Beer is getting smaller and smaller and smaller
because
but
there's so much
more of it,
yeah.
And it's smaller and smaller. So I was talking to I wound up sitting next to Joey Porter from Specs, who's been on the show a number of times at the Specs Gala. We were just talking about the future of beer stuff, and he thinks it's all these small to mid-sized local breweries with tap rooms. He says the tap room is the future.
That's the setup.
That's the setup because they can sell enough beer out of their own tap room directly to be able to make a living, and then to the extent that they achieve distribution beyond that, that's almost like gravy.
Yeah.
If they don't.
Yeah,
if they don't set their sights so high and not be able to follow through.
If I'm not mistaken, Parish is only Louisiana. So they similar style setup that they're doing so well that they don't need state. Now I will tell you that I had a discussion with them, and can they hear us?
Just on Facebook Live.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That's fine. I had a talk with them, and they are coming to Texas very soon.
That's great.
Right now, though, they have a hard enough time just keeping up with
the demand where they are. Yeah,
they're awesome.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
Segment 2. Here we go. All right, so we'll taste the Four Roses, and we'll taste.
Wow, I can talk about them all day.
We'll taste this beer that I brought. Oh, I didn't pull it. Let me pull that out first, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, here we go. I'm ready to start. Welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. It's brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And there's some news I saw that hit the Chronicle, the Houston Chronicle this week, that I guess the sale or purchase is completed, but the guys that own B&B have purchased a spot in the downtown area where they'll be opening an Italian restaurant. So that's something to be a little bit different and something to look forward to. We'll bring you the details. In fact, we will have Jeremiah on the show here. I'm hoping actually to have Jeremiah on the program next week as the fill-in guest host, because our guest next week is a guy. How would you like to go through life with this name? His name is Trey Boring. So we went out and got a really boring guy to be on the show, but actually he's not boring at all.
He's got to overcompensate.
He is right, exactly. He's an attorney with Cigar Rights of America. This is the organization that is most responsible for lobbying in Washington, D.C. Rocky Patel talked about these guys when we had Rocky on. Most responsible for lobbying for the rights of cigar smokers when, some of this crazy regulations and stuff get proposed, and these are the guys that go in and fight as much as possible. And so Trey will be telling you what you can do, and it's not difficult, what you can do to get involved and help the cause for cigar smokers so we don't get our rights taken away by unnecessary government regulation. So it's Smokin' and Toastin'. I mentioned, Kris, the Take Craft Back campaign. They have finally folded the campaign after raising $3,808,660. They've folded it kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way, which is sort of the way that they,
the whole thing started.
Did the whole thing, yeah. But they really felt great about what happened because they drew a lot of attention to the whole concept of taking craft beer back from the masses and what it means. And, Anheuser-Busch continues to try to play both sides of the fence. They have launched this new campaign called Elevate to, quote, elevate, unquote, craft beer and give it more exposure and supposedly raise the quality level of the ingredients used in craft beer and so on, so on, so on, so on, so on, while at the same time they continue to run the Dilly Dilly campaign making fun of craft beer aficionados. So it's kind of interesting to me. It's caused me to really reevaluate how I feel about the brands that they bought that they now own under their umbrella. Karbach being one, which I love. Karbach, located right here in our hometown of Houston.
Well loved too.
They make great beer. There's great people over there. I mean, they're very dedicated, devoted to the craft of brewing great beer, and they've made some sensational beers, some really outstanding beers. It's a little harder for me to swallow it, though, with their parent company
being two-sided.
Okay,
yeah. So I'm not defending them, and
Okay,
I'm going to play devil's advocate.
I love
know
this.
Scott Platt's is a local guy. He hates playing devil's advocate, but hear me out. In the whiskey world, there are in many different worlds. When you're large enough, you have different budgets for different sections. Let's say different campaigns, right? So.
Right.
I am sure the section of AB InBev that is buying up these craft beers have their own hurdle to overcome, which is people thinking that they're just big beer,
right?
While them trying to push, no, we're still craft beer.
We're still doing quality brewing. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sure that there's other departments who have budgets for commercials. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not.
Listen, I wouldn't want to be the guy in charge of marketing Bud Light right now. You've had year after year after year after year of systemic loss in terms of market share, and there's no sign that it's going to get any better. And yet, it's still the flagship brand of the company. In other words, it still makes more money, more profit than any other product that AB InBev produces.
That's all those football games and stadium sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you what do you do? Like, how do you get people to rally around your product?
I think when Karbach sold out, everyone was outraged, and right now there's even a little bit of controversy over Buffalo Bayou Brewing, who just announced the expansion to a full-blown facility. And the whispers have always been that Karbach expanded just before they sold out, that they quietly got some money for that expansion, then to sell out. And so now that Buffalo Bayou is expanding, they're wondering.
People are worried if it's the same situation.
Yeah. So Buff Brew is being met with some
skepticism.
What's the word for conspiracy theories?
There you go.
Yeah.
Even better than skepticism.
So I mean. I think time will tell. I've had Karbach since the buyout, and it's still good beer.
Still delicious.
Yeah,
yes,
I have no complaints. I understand. I understand the controversy, but a lot of times when people are angry about something, and you get the masses angry about it, I think it's oftentimes so much more simpler than that. I just think that it's the whole two different sides: AB InBev making fun of craft beer while at the same time trying to promote it. I think that's two different departments. Or not that I think it, but if that is the case, that would make sense.
Most likely it is. Yeah. I mean, we had David Graham from
Doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Doesn't make it okay.
We had David Graham from Karbach on the show a few weeks after the announcement of the AB InBev takeover of Karbach, and David's an amazing guy, very passionate about beer. I mean, it's just like you see this beer fan that loves this so much, and he's talking about the fact that the reality for them is they have more money to try more things, to be more experimental, to try some some extensions of their line and some beer styles that they might not have been able to afford to do without that.
It's a two-sided coin. Even when Balcones expanded, you fight as a small company to find people to support you financially so that you could grow. But at some point, there's a line that if they support you too much, you're the bad guy.
Yep.
It's a buyout, it's a sellout.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I have no opinion either way. I acknowledge the dichotomy, the two different sides of the whole situation. There
are a number of breweries in Austin that you could sort of classify them as some of the most fiercely independent breweries in Texas, and one of them I actually had a chance to pick up their Scotch style ale. It's called Highland Scoundrel. It is the Fourth Tap Brewery out of Austin, which has quickly become one of Austin's more respected breweries. And I thought we might sample this. It's a Scotch style ale. They use the word style because it's not actually a Scottish ale, but it's brewed in the same style. And you're already ahead of me tasting it, so give me some thoughts.
Local honey. That's what, to me, it tastes like dark, thick honey, and it's got the color of it too.
Yeah, it really does have a sort of a honey brownish yellow hue to it.
It reminds me, every once in a while my wife and I will go to H-E-B or Kroger's, and they've got this gorgeous display of cheeses and honeys. And,
yes.
And we'll gather up a few things, and that night we'll spend the night watching Netflix and with the kids and tasting honeys and cheeses. That, to me, tastes like a really thick, dense, dark honey.
It really, you said local honey, and it really has that, not just honey, but that flavor that you only get with honey or something that's been locally sourced that way.
What's the ABV on that?
I have not checked that out, so let's look and see if it's clearly said. It says, our malt is smoked and hand-turned over real Scottish peat, kilt not optional.
Scottish peat?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's vegan-friendly, and I am not finding the ABV on the can, so
I'm about to murder people's ears. So there's this thing I've started doing with whether it's wine and I've been told that it's a wine technique, but whiskey in particular, I've been really doing this a lot. But if you take just a little bit in and you leave it in the front of your mouth and you go that sound, it'll aerate it, and you can really taste. You get past the liquid and taste what you are smelling, and at the same time.
Well, it's interesting. Someone gave me several years ago, and I use this a lot when I drink spirits. Someone gave me an actual aerator. And so you pour, they make these for wine, and that's where the idea came from, but to use it with spirits instead, you pour the spirit into the top, and then you press the button to release it into the glass, and as it releases, it aerates the spirit, and it does, in many cases, draw some extra flavor out of the spirit. I've used it with rum and with whiskey and with tequila.
It's absolutely tasty. I've never heard of it. But you said a few things that are big green lights for me.
Highland Scoundrel.
You said
Scotch style ale from
Scotch
Fourth
style.
Tap.
You said peat, and I'm on board.
Yeah,
so
you're a peat guy,
I'm
aren't
a
you?
peat guy.
You're
man.
a peat
Lafroig all the way.
So let's talk. Not necessarily peat, but let's talk whiskey. You poured some of the Four Roses a moment ago. Tell me about this, because you're again. You're just like Ian. You've gotten ahead of me in the tasting. He always seems to do
I'm
that.
with you in heart. We're on the same schedule, but. So this is. So I mentioned we're going to do a Four Roses pick. This will be tomorrow morning. We'll be at the Four Roses Distillery in Kentucky, and this is what we plan to do is a barrel strength selection of this. Now, what you have there is a local dive bar, but the complete opposite of the fact once you look at their selection. It's Poison Girl.
So this bottle came from Poison Girl? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so Poison Girl, they're known for some of their selections, and in this case, this is a barrel selection for Poison Girl. Four Roses is known to have for having 10 different recipe styles that they use for their yeast strains and everything that they do with their. You can get all 10 in 10 different bottles, 10 different recipes.
Wow.
So the goal oftentimes is to gather up that collection for neat reasons. I get to say I have all 10. But this is
you're a completist.
Correct. Yeah. So this is an 8 years, 7 months OBSV was the recipe, and it was selected for Poison Girl, and it's
some wonderful. I can almost pull some honey flavorings out of this as well.
That's a pretty common note for a lot of bourbons. I've always said that Scotch has a broader range of flavors. You go from peat to sherry, and then they've got that middle range.
Right.
Where bourbon is pretty narrow, although it's very nuanced. Four Roses just makes some of the best bourbon on the market. So I'm a big fan of both Poison Girl. Shout out to Brian, and and drink up, man. This is just tasty.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So we'll enjoy this during the break, and when we return, we're going to talk about the big cigars of the year. Cigar Aficionados named their top of 2017. Plus, we'll do a little more tasting. I see you mentioned Balcones earlier. I see you have some Balcones Texas rum.
I did bring some Balcones Texas rum, and I also brought another local pick of Buffalo Trace, which is absolutely
nice.
great. So,
and I have something to surprise you with. That'll be coming up.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. It sounds more intense in the headphones.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get ahead of you. This is nice.
no, it's good actually because it lets you talk while I taste. So. Ian always defines it as doing his research. Here's some of the beer if you want to try it. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. So if you want, we can jump right into... Oh, let me get a bottle opener. What's up? We're doing the show. We're doing it a little early today.
Appreciate that, by the way.
What's that?
Appreciate you doing it early.
Oh, I appreciate you being able to.
We just had quite a bit going on today. It's actually my daughter's birthday too.
Oh, wow, cool.
So got to take them to get their nails done.
Yeah.
Give her gifts, and then we're flying out tonight.
And you were going to where again? You're going to
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah. So we rented a house down there. A few of us are heading up there. You guys should come out one day. Like, we do the trip 2 or 3 times a year.
About this, yeah.
But if we could, you could film it at the distillery or interview it,
fun, yeah.
And it's pretty cheap. You can fly into Cincinnati for a couple $100.
Yeah.
And then we could set up something.
Are you worried about the weather at all, keeping you from being able to?
It's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, it's about 20 degrees up there right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to pull some samples, head inside, and warm up, and then do it inside.
I just know like New England's getting like hammered. Yeah. So, all right. Ready we are. Welcome back, my friends. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. This program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and now open in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Cigar Aficionado has named their top 10 cigars of 2017. We will get to that in a few minutes, and we will also talk about the fact that craft beer is still growing in 2017. There was a lot of negative information about craft beer and its growth level that came out last year, and the fact is it was all for naught. The craft beer segment continued to grow. This is despite the fact that some of the biggest craft breweries in the United States were purchased and are no longer considered in these numbers during 2017. And despite that, craft beer has continued to grow. So it wasn't its fastest growth year, but it's continued to grow. So
I'm going to say something I know is going to be controversial.
Okay, go for it.
From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, at some point, for years people were saying craft beer. But then someone actually got together and they're like, we should come up with guidelines for what craft beer is. And
yes.
From what I understand, the main craft beer definition that is quickly disqualifying all these craft breweries is simply the amount that you produce.
Correct. The amount of barrels or whatever it is.
I think in Texas it's something like 60,000 barrels.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, if you've got a local distiller, right? Let's just say if that distiller's been putting his heart and mind into the craft and have been making beer, gets bought out, and it's still him being the distiller or brewer, and the fact that it's disqualified simply because of the amount that the parent company produces,
right?
It would seem like that is a nonsense definition. I mean, you get what I'm saying?
Right. I think one of the reasons
not fair.
One of the reasons for those smaller and mid-sized breweries being taken out of the count is because you can't be more than a certain percentage owned by a larger or a multinational company.
Right, but isn't that the connection though? So, meaning you could. I'm just making some numbers.
The beer is still the beer, though. I understand what you're saying.
Right, and
the beer is still the beer.
Brewery may still be producing slightly more than they were producing before.
That's certainly
but just
possible.
under a new parent company.
Under a new parent company.
It just seems like not the right. I think the definitions, and they may already be changing, and it may differ state by state, but I think the definition should be centered around the process of making the beer.
I would agree
with
that.
So,
yep, I would agree with that.
I know that like with distillers, when they buy bulk corn, there's a certain percentage, certain grade of corn that they will only buy, because if you buy less than that, then you're literally buying for trash within the grain, meaning you could have bird bones or bugs or pieces of glass and dirt. So they only will buy a certain level of corn, a certain grade of corn, because then they know that what they're buying is strictly raw corn, like Wild Turkey uses non-GMO. That to me makes a whole lot more apropos definition for what craft is, as opposed to.
And I think you're going to see more and more of that in the next several years too. I think you're going to see more and more brewers, distillers using non-GMO, using gluten-free, doing a lot of the things that you're beginning to see so much of in the food industry now, as people are beginning to shift towards this kind of consumption in many areas of their life. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I want you to try something, my friend. I'm going to pass over a whiskey for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is until after you have sampled.
Bourbon.
It's not bourbon. It's a blended Scotch whiskey, and I'm real interested to
get my opinion.
Get your take on this.
Feels like a trap.
I promise that it's not.
All right. Well, just off the nose, my. Okay. It's peated.
Yes, it's definitely peated.
Lower ABV. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 80 proof.
Yeah, definitely lower than what we just had with the Four Roses. There's no
Barrel
question about that.
Four Roses.
Yeah.
Let me think.
And it's interesting because I've had this before, but I've never had it following something like the Four Roses. So it does create a you kind of come at it a little differently.
Is this so it's got a yeasty quality. I say this a lot with Brook Laddie. Brook Laddie has a very yeasty, like a biscuit, dinner biscuit, like Brook Laddie Rocks, which they don't make anymore. To me, always reminded me of dinner rolls. It had a very yeast roll quality.
Yeast roll
and then you've got some peat in here. It's not bad. There's lots of honey. Very, very honeyed.
And it's much more peaty than I was expecting when I first tried it.
I feel like it's less peaty than, at least less than Lefroy, because Lefroy gets such a punch in the face. It's not bad.
I will also say that as you drink it, it becomes less peaty, if that makes sense. Like
I didn't taste honey the first time, because all I tasted was peat, and the second sip I got a ton of honey. So I want to say I feel like I'm way off base, but it reminds me of Johnny Walker, or maybe a low end, the lower end blended, peat monster from Compass Box.
Well, I love your taste buds because they're essentially right on the money. This is Bell's blended Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
Are you
80
familiar
proof,
with?
Right?
Are you? Yes. Are you familiar with Bell's?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Bell's.
Yeah. So I know that they use it. My understanding is that Bell's creates a lot of the the base whiskey that other brands will use in their blends. But what I thought was interesting about this is this bottle cost $18.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not bad, and I could definitely sit down with you. Sit across from each other, nice cigar,
right,
on a cold night in front of a fire, and kill that bottle, murder that bottle.
Absolutely.
It reminds a lot of blended whiskey. They use their base peated whiskey coming from Bunnahabhain. Bunnahabhain being the more mild, less in your face peated whiskey on Islay compared to some of the other ones like Ardbeg or Lefroy.
This is, I thought, what I found most interesting about it is I thought it was probably the best $18 whiskey I'd had.
I will give you that.
But I haven't had a lot of $18 whiskeys. So
what's the name of the the priced what'd you call it, the TPS? The price to
MSRP or whatever it is.
No, there's a scale for your price to value.
The price to quality scale.
Price to quality. That's right. Yeah. So PTQ is what you call it.
The PTQ, yes.
So the price to quality scale, it's hard to beat for $18.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and if you consider that I've had plenty of
much more expensive
$45 whiskeys that I thought weren't really remarkably better in any way than that. So anyway, that's my surprise bottle. You brought me a surprise beer, did you not?
I did bring you a surprise beer.
Do you want to crank that baby up?
Well, it's in the freezer still.
Oh, it's in the freezer. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll take it at the next break.
We'll grab it in the next break. Why don't you suggest another thing for us to taste then in the remainder of this?
Sure. So this is another local pick. This is Buffalo Trace.
This is the Buffalo Trace.
So when you talk about price to quality index,
yes.
Buffalo Trace, their bottles, it's their namesake. It's their standard bourbon. I believe they're all 90 proof. 90
we
proof.
talked about this in a show early last year that because of the popularity and the relatively low price, the Buffalo Trace has at times been hard to find.
Yeah, so this actually, when Total Wine gets it, they allocate it to one per person for some reason. But this is about $24. I mean, when you talk about a $24 bourbon, 90 proof, just like Eagle Rare is. And this is actually a store selection pick for a local place. I love supporting local. M&R Liquors did this. I want to say they basically pre-sold the barrel.
Wow.
They reached out to their folks. A couple local guys picked it. I'm sure you've heard of Travis Whitmire at Balcones. I'm sorry, at Whitmire's.
Whitmire's, yes.
And him and Travis and a few other local guys went and picked it, and they pretty much sold the whole thing before it even got here.
So what they did is similar to what you're doing, where you're going to pick a barrel and bring in the barrel home, right?
Right. So for as long as I can remember, stores were doing picks, but local groups weren't. So the only difference is that these are done by the people. Unfortunately, I try to participate in all of them, but my vote usually doesn't count. I try to stay. I'd rather them pick it as opposed to.
Right.
And I'm an easy pleaser. I'm happy either way. But what we're doing, the only one I really care about, my personal opinion on for this trip, is the Four Roses. That one, as I mentioned, was named after my wife. It's kind of like a little sweet gesture. I got to be sweet to her from time to time.
Yes.
So me working, as much as I do, she deserves a little shout out. But so this is.
So let's try the Buffalo Trace.
This is. They have all the classic flavors of bourbon. Let's see here. Do you have an empty glass? Yeah, there we go. So all the classic flavors of bourbon, like tobacco, pipe tobacco. I think it's got a nice Cavendish flavor to it.
Oh yes, you can definitely get that in the first whiff too.
Very easy sipper. They did a tremendous job.
Wow, that's really nice on the nose too. And this is what you said, a $23 bottle.
I think after tax it was $24, and it's on the northwest side of town, and it's all gone.
Wow.
I mean, they're a great local spot. You've got a lot of great local mom and pop shops on the north side. You've got Blind Pig Liquor in Cypress, M&R, and of course Whitmire's Distillery is up there as well. So if you're on the northwest side of town, you're living the good life when it comes to whiskey.
So Chris, this is where it gets tough for the bells, because if this is a $24,
I'd rather have the
that's
bourbon.
only a few dollars more than the bells. As good as this is, wow, that's a few dollars well spent.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that blended whiskey, but I'm a big proponent of a slightly higher proof.
Yes, and you can definitely pull this out, yeah.
Proof is directly related to flavor, right? So when you've got a raw product in the barrel, that is the most concentrated that barrel can possibly be.
So when you're saying this, you're saying it's not about intoxicant, it's about
flavor.
It's about flavor.
Right. I mean, I would much rather go buy the powdered Country Time lemonade container and mix my own lemonade as opposed to buying a pre-made lemonade. Because then you can make it as sweet as you want.
Or as strong as you want, or whatever, yes.
Meaning the raw product in the barrel, that is as concentrated the amount of flavor as you possibly can, and then add water accordingly. If you prefer a lower proof, just add it from there, as opposed to buying it pre-watered down, which this is still pre-watered down, but 90 proof is a little bit more, a little bit more going on in the palate.
Wow, the Buffalo Trace is terrific. You were listening to Smokin' and Toastin'. When we come back, we're going to try this this beer that Kris has brought in for me. Plus, as promised, the best cigars of 2017 from Cigar Aficionado coming up.
That was 3, right?
What's that?
That was the third one. That was number 3. Yeah, so we could get to balconies and
yes,
kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. I hope I didn't.
No, that was perfect.
Yeah, it was good.
Was
the bells was good.
Yeah.
It reminded me of a slightly lower proof peat monster from Compass Box, which they're known for their blends.
I'm not as big of a peat guy, but I got a bottle of that and I started drinking from it one night, and it's like about the second glass in, I was like, I'm kind of enjoying this. Like, this isn't just like, oh, here's some cheap whiskey. This is pretty good, you know? And it definitely
super sweet. Super
yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, it definitely had some of those characteristics. Is it nice and cold? It froze.
It's only been in there for 20 minutes?
Wow, yeah, it hasn't been that. Okay, wow.
Wow. How do we do that?
Ghost in the machine, wow.
So, Facebook Live, they can hear us.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So we froze the ghost in the machine.
The ghost in the machine. So we'll leave it sitting there. Maybe it'll,
we'll talk about it.
Maybe it'll calm down by the last break.
So people are definitely like, how could you freeze a bottle of Ghost in the Machine? It's only been in there a few minutes, man.
All right, well, I got a beer we can try.
This way, you can see.
There we go.
Show the bottles.
Yeah, that's good.
So it froze, guys. I'll leave it here but we'll talk about it for a minute. They're coming to Texas.
I love a good
soon.
beer.
I actually had a bottle of or a can of Houston Haze that froze, and I defrosted it, let it sit out overnight, drank it in the morning. It was fine.
It's terrific. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. If my beer freezes, I just let it thaw.
That is a damn shame.
Well, at least you know your freezer works.
Yeah. I didn't. Jeremy is giving me a hard time. I didn't mean to freeze it. I didn't know that his freezer was that strong.
Yeah.
He said, "You froze the DDH." Come on, man.
That's so great.
Did you guys see the numbers from the last time we were on your show?
Yeah. When we were at was it B&B the last
Boss
time?
Cat.
Oh,
Boss
no,
Cat.
Boss Cat. Yes, Boss Cat was the last.
Boss Cat, man, last I checked, it was like 2,100 views.
Yeah, no,
which I'm okay with that.
It's great, and it's really interesting because I've been in watching like some stuff. Like Facebook Live seems to be one of the ways that people consume the show the most. But it's just really interesting. Some shows do really, really well off of SoundCloud and the downloads. Other shows, it's all about the YouTube or the. It just really depends on the show.
As long as you can, from an advertiser standpoint, as long as you can prove listenership, I think that's all it's about.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's awesome. All right, so we'll just bound ahead here.
Bruce, have you seen the new Sufferers commercial? The Houston Sufferers commercial?
I don't think I've seen one that's brand new. I know they did one for Houston that I saw last year sometime, but if there's something brand new,
Maybe I saw it. It was on the UT bowl game They played it during.
Oh,
the
really?
game. And
Wow.
I think it's a new song. I haven't heard. The song.
Wow,
It's pretty
that's
cool.
really cool. Well, they do have a handful of great new songs. So
wait, here's the beer. Okay, so you get the next beer.
yeah, I get the next beer, and we'll go. Are we going rum now?
So we'll jump over to the balconies after we
Okay.
do your beer.
Okay. I still want to come back a little bit to the Buffalo Trace at the beginning here. So,
Big fan of it, man.
all right, let's rock. Here we go. Welcome back at Smokin' and Toastin'. It's show number 70. We're calling it a Whiskey New Year with Kris Hart, who has brought in some great whiskeys. We're enjoying ourselves. Kris is our guest co-host this week. Ian Barry is on assignment, and we'll return to the show excuse me, in a couple of weeks. But I appreciate you filling in, Kris, and I know Jeremiah from B&B is going to be filling in as well.
Nice.
So we're going to have a couple of things. And then coming up, I believe in not next week's show, but the following one, Maria Todd will be joining me, and we'll be doing the Smokin' and Toastin' Light Beer Blind Taste Test 2.0.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened when we did the first Light Beer Blind Taste Test is we got flooded with people going, hey, why didn't you try this one? Why didn't you try that one? So we're going to try to do all of those that we didn't have time to try in the first one. So I understand we'll be trying some things like Bud Light Ice.
Ugh.
We'll be trying Yangling Light,
Oh, okay.
which should be interesting. And we'll be trying something from Budweiser that has cactus in it. That's all I know.
Have you ever had the Walgreens beer?
No, I didn't know there was Walgreens
So
beer.
they make a 6-pack beer for like $3.
Oh
for
my
the
gosh.
6-pack.
Oh
And
my gosh.
It's something like David's Creek or some. It's barely
really,
beer.
Really
it's
awful.
barely beer.
They call that near beer, I think. Wow, that's hilarious. We'll have to try that. We've talked about doing a number of different theme shows like that. We wanted to try the Costco craft beer box, and there's one. Of course, Walmart had it, but Walmart seems to be off the shelf now.
Maybe something's going on
craft
there.
beer. Yeah, so I don't know what's.
I know
up
they're
with
doing
that,
a big push to try to get state liquor allowed on the shelf.
That would be a very interesting thing to see liquor at Walmart. I mean, that would be
Go
be
to
a new
Louisiana,
thing.
you know?
Yeah, well, yes. I often said after having lived in Louisiana before, it's like really every business in Louisiana is just a liquor store. They just also happen to sell whatever else they
Correct.
sell.
Gas or whatever.
KB
Yeah.
Toys, wherever you go. It's all just there's all just a liquor store atmosphere in the front. So I brought interestingly. We should mention your beer that you bought is
Man.
frozen.
So basically,
we stuck it in the freezer.
We tried to chill down a DDH Ghost in the Machine from Parish Brewery.
And I'm so excited to try that, too.
And during break, I jumped over there to check on it, and it is not quite frozen solid, but definitely not drinkable.
Well,
Until it defrosts, I'm still going to drink it. This beer, I know that some prefer the original Ghost in the Machine for Parish, but this is their DD8 double dry hopped Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, so this is an IPA, correct?
Yeah, it's an NE IPA, hazy IPA, and it looks like orange juice. It's absolutely delicious. Parish, from what I'm being told, is planning on coming to Texas to get distribution here soon, but soon could mean anything.
Well, this is a pretty big deal then, because this is already in high demand in their local markets.
Yeah, so there's a local guy, David, from our area that drove to the brewery for the release one Saturday, and when he got there were already people that had camped out overnight. And the first 10 people each bought 30 cases of it, which ended up being half the batch.
Oh my God, so half the batch is gone with the first 10 people.
Yeah, so I tried, he brought me back a case, and I thank him daily for it, but it's a really tasty, I'm not a big IPA guy, overall, but I really, really enjoy this.
Well, I am going to force an IPA on you now. This is what we're going to sample next. It is from our friends at Dogfish Head, which are in Maryland, and they are... I hadn't seen this before. This is the Liquid Truth Serum IPA, so I have a feeling this is going to be fairly intense and fairly hoppy.
Is it high in the alcohol content?
It's about a 10%, so that's not...
So Truth Serum made me think high ABV.
Yeah, definitely high ABV. I stand corrected. It's 6.8, so that's high, but it's not like...
Right.
It's not like over the rainbow high, but it's interesting. I've not tried this before, so I'm interested to see. They make an interesting claim on here. It says, truthfully hoppy. It's Truth Serum IPA. Truthfully hoppy without being deceptively bitter. But I'm not sure how you get super hoppy without a certain amount of bitterness. So you've already sampled. What do you think?
So I started with beer before I moved to whiskey, and everyone has that normal progression. You discover Shiner at 21,
Sure,
right? Because no one drinks before they're 21,
and then you discover Shiner Bock, and you're like, this is so much better than what I've been drinking.
Then I went from Shiner Bock to Fat Tire, New Belgium.
Love Fat Tire.
And then New Belgium, I went to Dogfish Head, and they used to make something called the Raison d'etre.
Yes, I've had
Reason
it.
for living. I just I was absolutely in love with that beer, and they used to have their own TV show. So I've always been a Dogfish Head supporter. Although, and they make a 120-minute IPA.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's like syrup poured over pancakes.
Even just the 60-minute is fantastic.
So I would agree with you. It's not overly bitter.
Yes, it's
very
not.
light.
It's got, in fact, it's got a little of that sessionable, almost citrusy flavor on the back, which surprised me. Given, Liquid Truth Serum and the sort of look of the bottle, I was expecting something a little bit bigger, more over the top.
Right. No, it's definitely more middle of the road as far as. It's not taking you on any kind of roller coaster ride of intensity. It's not super hoppy, super bitter.
It's actually pretty sessionable, pretty drinkable.
I could probably kill a couple of those.
It almost falls into the sort of hazy New England IPA kind of a vibe a little bit because of the citrusy flavor. Although it's pretty clear. It's not too hazy in terms of its unfiltered versus filtered nature. But it's good. I'm picking up notes of tangerine in there and getting just a little bit of. I'm surprised actually at how citrusy it is, but it is not fruit forward at all.
Yeah, I was thinking more on the realm of citrus oil. Not so much a juicy citrus fruit as much as the oil. When you bend the peel and you smell the mist. That really intense citrus notes.
Yes. Definitely is, but very drinkable, very refreshing actually, which surprises me a little. You don't always think of IPAs as being refreshing, but that's pretty refreshing. I like it.
I'm happy with it. What'd that run?
This was, I want to say the bottle was about $3.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, so not bad. And I'm sure in a 6-pack, I bought it individually, but I'm sure in a 6-pack you can get it cheaper than that. So Dogfish Head, really not overpriced stuff.
I think they do 4-packs.
But
even so,
right.
it's still pretty costly.
I think it depends on the beer. Some in 6s, some in 4s. If I'm not,
you know what? You're right.
Mistaken.
I think the 60 minutes of.
If I'm not mistaken.
What do I know?
The Villager La Flor de Inclán Robusto came in at number 10 on the Cigar Aficionado list of the biggest cigars of the year. Villager, by the way, known primarily for making really inexpensive machine-made cigars. So they do have a premium division, but this is kind of a big deal for them to land one in the top 10 of the year for Cigar Aficionado. That's number 10.
What would you say as far as your, and I think we may have discussed this before, but your taste profile for cigars? Are you on the Maduro, the heavy?
I like Maduros, but not necessarily because they're heavy. I'm more of a medium to medium full guy in terms of intensity and strength. I don't like the power of a cigar to overpower the flavor. So some of the strongest ones that I've had, I've thought didn't have as complex flavor. So I'm a medium,
a bit overbearing.
Yeah, medium to medium full type of guy. I do like Maduros. I do like sun-grown wrappers and things that have a tendency to impart a little bit of spice. I'm a spice guy when it comes to cigars.
Ian's not here, but he just commented that the name of the beer from Walgreens is Big Flats.
Big Flats. Thank you, Ian. Here in spirit. I appreciate that, my man. The Guardian of the Farm, Apollo Selection de Warped, came in at number 8. Oh, I forgot to tell you number 9. It's the Plasencia Almafuerte Generation 5. So number 8 was the Guardian of the Farm. This is one of the ones, we got a couple of these cigars at the Big Smoke. This is the one where the Guardian of the Farm is actually a dog, and each cigar has a different sort of dog silhouette on it because the dog is the guardian of the farm.
Nice.
That guards the tobacco. My Father the Judge, Grand Robusto, came in at number 7 on the list. The Ashton Symmetry Bellicoso at number 6. Alec Bradley's Tempest Natural Centuria in at number 5. That's a cigar I've had a number of during the last year, and it definitely deserves to be on this list. The Bolivar Bellicoso Fino at number 4. The Oliva Serie 5 Bellicoso at number 3. At number 2, the Padron Serie 1926, number 2, the Natural. And at number 1, the Arturo Fuente Don Carlos Eye of the Shark, which I have not had, and I now... I would have, not because it's number 1, but just looking at the photo of it in this article, I'm like, I have to have one of those. That's almost making me salivate. That's good.
So I know we're running low on time, but it looks like it's drinkable now.
All right, so I tell you what, let's do. Let's wait until the last segment. Give it a chance to thaw just a little more. We'll do that. Why don't we? Let's see, what do we got left here? A couple of rums, and I've got a beer as well.
So we can hit the Balcones. We've got a little bit of time here. And I'll run through this pretty quick. But they make a rum here. Some people are not a big rum drinkers. Maybe not their favorite. But I did a rum tasting locally, and I featured this, and they loved it. Balcones out of Waco, Texas made, one of the few brands who actually carry the Go Texan logo and is actually from Texas.
Sweet, I love it. Yeah,
right. So there's a lot of brands carrying that are not from Texas. But Balcones actually, if you guys are Whiskey Cake fans down at Baybrook, Baybrook Mall, their Whiskey Cake location is doing a full-blown Balcones tasting down there, and I forget the date, but if you'll go to, if you join the Houston Bourbon Society. Or just check out the Whiskey Cake Facebook page. They're doing a full-blown tasting featuring some of the whiskeys from Balcones. And
Balcones is
phenomenal.
I mean, they really are a strong producer of really excellent spirits. They really are. I mean, the whiskeys that I've had have just been exceptional. Just exceptional. And I'm excited about the rum. I'm a big rum guy. I would almost say I'm more of a rum guy than a whiskey guy. I don't know.
I gotta leave.
It's tough. It's tough. It's a tight one. But yeah, all I have to say is if you have another rum event, I better be invited.
Oh yeah, and I mean we brought Plantation this year, and we'll definitely have them back. Plantation was super well received. And
I will tell you, my wife, the Plantation pineapple dark rum. That's my wife's go-to. That's her favorite in the world. So, wow, that's a good rum.
It's heavy.
It's
heavy.
It's intense. That's rum for people who like to drink whiskey. I can tell you that. That's good. That's the Balcones. All right, we'll talk more about that when we come back. Plus, we still have beer and rum and a little bit more to taste. Stand by. It's Smokin' and Toastin'.
Is that bottle opener? Let me check it out here.
Careful when you open. That rum is good.
The rum's heavy. That rum is heavy.
That's good. Digging this liquid truth serum.
Oh, it's incredibly.
You were so right about orange juice.
Yeah, look at
it. That's great. Oh, I'm so excited to taste that. All right, this is the last segment. How far over did I run, Anna?
Just a few seconds.
Not much.
Yeah, okay.
What?
It doesn't really matter since we're not on Radio Brave anymore, but we like sticking to the rough outline of the 12-minute segments. It seems to make the show flow better.
I would love to see just a raw, uncut episode of 4 guys in here, and you guys just go for the hour.
Oh, yeah. We could totally do it.
And if you need to pause at some point, but, you can cut that together just right, but a raw hour of just
We should do just a freeform show.
Like, as a special treat,
Yeah.
I think it would go well.
That actually would be really fun. We would need to have, like, a room full of guests, though.
Oh, yeah, and we could definitely do it. And you'd have nonstop interaction. There'd be no dead air. I mean, you've got a flow there, especially you put 4 bottles out on the table. I'll take the slushy. And that is definitely a slushy for those looking at it.
I love it.
And this is a little less, and by the time we get to it, it should differ off.
It should be awesome.
Give that a sniff. I mean, it's just...
Oh, I think I'm in love.
It's still good.
I
don't mind a beer slushy.
Great. I love it.
One thing I love about this show is the amount of people who like to comment and just kind of poke fun. Like, just mess with me while I'm on the air.
yeah, absolutely. Love that.
What is the milkshake craze about?
So we could cover that.
Yeah.
There's been a large push for people in the group to buck the snootiness.
Yeah.
To get past all the you can't drink with this type of glassware. You can't you can't put this, if you're going to use an ice cube, it has to be a single ice cube. And I'd love to mention this on the air, but there's a guy locally, he's a rep for RNDC, who started something called the Frank Shake. His name's Frank. And he started videotaping him loading up a blender with ice cream, high-end ice cream.
Yeah.
And pour some of the rarest bourbons into it to make a milkshake. And people were like, "What are you doing? You're ruining that great bourbon." And he's like, "Get over yourself."
Get over yourself.
So, and then it kind of caught on like wildfire. People were posting videos of them making ice cream, ice cubes, a little bit of chia seeds, like making it healthy a little bit, and then throwing in a $600 bottle of bourbon. And people were like, so then it's become a thing. So someone mentioned in the feed here to just, are we going to talk about the shake craze?
When you guys were over, did my wife make?
Yes, she did. And it blew us away. We talked about it.
Yes, that's right.
We talked about it for months.
Yeah, we got to do that again.
Something with rum in it, or
yes, it's got. We used Kraken actually, the black.
Correct.
Rum.
Yeah.
And but it's it's not the painkiller, but it's the. God, I always.
It's super. We knew it was calorie heavy. It's a calorie bomb.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, big time. But boy, is it good. You're on vacation when you're drinking that. That's for sure. All right, I think we're ready for the final approach.
On the beach in Hawaii.
Welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. My name is Cruz. Ian Barry, my co-host and dear friend, is on assignment and will be back with us in a couple of weeks. But we really want to say thank you to Kris Hart for filling in and being designated co-host this week for Smokin' and Toastin'.
Ian, you're fired. I'm not leaving.
He's having too much fun, Ian. You should never go on assignment early in the year. The Kris Harts of the world will sneak in on you.
Sneak in.
Yeah. No, Ian will be back. We promise. He would be particularly fond of the Four Roses and the Buffalo Trace that we tried. I can tell you that.
You definitely can't go wrong with those, and they're widely available.
Yeah.
I mean,
now I'm still kind of smacking my lips over this Balcones
the
rum.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about this. This is a very the phrase that came to my mind was alcohol forward rum. It packs a punch.
It definitely packs a punch. And just put it out there, the alcohol percentage is 63%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that is in fact cask strength. Balcones has done 3 or 4 or 5 different releases of this rum, and they tend to disappear pretty quickly.
I bet.
A lot of people like them. They're great in I have a weakness for pina coladas.
Nice. Well, we were just talking frozen drinks.
I like this beer.
All right, so let's talk about the beer a little bit. You brought this. This is from Parish.
Yeah, Parish Brewing, and this is their.
And they're located where?
In Louisiana.
In Louisiana. Okay.
Yeah, so they make they've got a few things that are really good. They also came out with something recently called the Maple Shade. Comes in like a champagne style bottle, so pretty big. $25 a bottle for a single beer, which is not too uncommon. And I think they use something like 500 or 600 pounds of maple syrup to make it. It's a barrel aged.
That's crazy. Yeah,
and it's delicious. I mean, the wax smells horrible, but the bottle, the beer itself is actually very tasty. I think it's everything that CB. Have you had Canadian Breakfast Stout?
I have.
So Founders came out with that. I was a bit underwhelmed by it.
Really?
And
I thought it was pretty good.
It's not bad. I just expected more, especially at $23 a bottle.
Well, okay.
So it's at HEB, some places a little higher, but Parish makes just phenomenal beer, and even as a slush, which I mentioned during the break, there's been a little bit of a bucking of trends lately within the groups. people are tired of the snooty behavior. You have to drink with this type of glassware, or if you're going to use ice, you can only use a single ice cube. And I'm repeating myself for those who heard us during the break, but there's a guy locally named Frank Fernandez that started something called I affectionately named it the Frank Shake. He may have a name for it, but he started a trend of making healthy milkshakes, chia seeds and proper just expensive ice cream, and then he'll throw in extremely rare bottle of bourbon into the mix to make a bourbon shake.
He's not pouring in Jack Daniels. He's pouring in
George T. Stagg or Pappy Van Winkle.
Oh, wow,
just like the really expensive stuff that people are trying to cherish and hold on to.
So you've got purists going crazy, I'm sure.
Some people have pulled their hair out a little bit,
yeah.
But there's been a lot of people in the group who picked up the trend and started making. Someone used Booker's Rye once, and that's that bottle was $300 at retail. And it was going for a lot more than that on some of the secondary sites. So I think it hit up at $600 at one point. So it's basically like drink it how you want it. It doesn't matter what other people think. This is a beer slushy, and it's still tasty.
Well, we've always been big fans on this show of saying, like what you like, whether it's music or beer or whatever. Honestly, if what you like is Miller Lite, drink it and enjoy it. I mean, don't let a beer snob like me convince you that your beer isn't good. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
If it brings you pleasure, if it brings you joy when you drink it or smoke it, enjoy it and make it. One of my go-to cigars is an embarrassingly cheap cigar that I get from JR online. But you know what?
What is it?
It's the JR Ultimates, which those are made in the style of something, and it's the it's a JR Ultimate Cohiba Behique, I think, but it's just really good. Like, it's just something I stumbled across, and it's so cheap, and it's like a go-to because it's good and it's cheap. Now, is it as good as the cigar I talked about this week? No. But it is
something that makes you happy.
A third of the price, and it makes me happy. Yeah, exactly. And so it really just depends on where you're at, what you're in the mood for, and what makes you happy. And right now, I'm thinking a beer slush may make me happy.
I mean, have you tasted it yet?
Not yet. Now, this is the Parish, and I've been waiting. And first of all, it looks like a glass of orange juice.
Yep.
But it doesn't taste like a glass of orange juice.
No, it
does
not.
This is exceptional.
It's especially how cold it is
right now.
right now.
I'm in love with this beer right now. Yes, it's so cold, and I like my beer cold. But wow, this is good.
You should try their standard Ghost in the Machine. Is arguably some people felt it was better, but I am overall I couldn't be happier. It's a tremendous beer.
Reminds me of how I felt very early in my beer drinking journey. When I was living in Boston, and I discovered, how like when you go to college in Texas, you discover Shiner Bock, and that's like your sort of like go-to college beer, and you're like, wow, this is so much
Shiner Bock was the Carbach of the
it's
2005s.
so much better than absolutely so much better than the regular mainstream beer that I've been drinking. So much better. Well, in Boston, the Shiner Bock of Boston, if you will, the college beer, the one everybody drinks, is an IPA that's brewed by Harpoon. And it's Harpoon IPA. And I remember moving to Boston from Texas and discovering this and discovering it like fresh and on tap in like every bar in town.
Everyone loves it, yeah.
And I remember just thinking, at that time, as my taste buds like adjusted to it, thinking, this is like the best beer I've ever had. So I'm having that sort of a flashback moment as I drink this, like that same level of appreciation, like, oh my God, this balance is perfect.
I would love...
It's fantastic.
Houston Haze, Spindletap released something last year called Houston Haze that was just as well received.
Yes.
And they just started carrying it on the store shelves. I've only seen it at Total Wine, but they can't keep it on the shelves.
Houston Haze, Spindletap?
From Spindletap. It's another hazy IPA. It's another 16-ounce can. It's tasty, delicious, crisp, fresh. It's not not bitter.
This is just a 12-ounce bottle. But you were telling me that this the one you were telling me that your friend went and
yeah. So this is with the 10 people in line and the 30 cases. So my buddy David Roger, he went and he took his van with him, and he loaded up that van until the wheel wells were just.
I love this. See, this is dedication. This is what makes this all so much fun to do. Whether it's the
not
the
just
whiskey,
dedication, camaraderie.
right?
The fact that he would do that and help the community.
Right, exactly. He does it. He helps the community, he helps the brewer, and then he helps his friends who he brings it back to.
There's and it happens all the time in Houston. There's a local guy named Jay Evans Tabor, and he has something that we like to affectionately call the juice hauler, and it's just a minivan of his. He went on a trip to Kentucky, was gone for like 5 weeks. It felt like forever. Came back, same thing. The wheels were in the wheel well. We didn't know if he hit a bump, he was going to lose it had to be breaking some sort of law, bringing that amount of booze back over state line. But he just was he helped out so many local groups. And, there's another great group in town called the Bourbon Hounds. And the camaraderie and friendship here and helping people get the fun, neat stuff is so rampant that there's no way that this group wouldn't have grown naturally. You know what I mean?
And I just want to say to any of those groups that you just mentioned and any others that are out there, if you have a group, I ran into a guy that does a cigar group when we were out at the event with Nimish the other day. If you've got a group, mention yourself in our show notes. Let us find it there and talk about you on the show. Let us help to do anything we can to publicize your group and connect you with people that are like-minded. That's what this is all about. Do we want to try the Forsyths in the waning moments of the show?
In the waning moments, yeah. So I'm probably going to butcher this one, but
okay.
So Habitation Vellier, and I butchered that right off the bat.
It's all good.
Is it's not available here in the States. Generally, you can find it at the Whiskey Exchange, and which is an overseas company. Mm-hmm. And Master of Malt, I think I've seen it there.
Master of Malt, we talked about on the show, yes.
So they find. It's called the House of Single Rums, right? That's the name.
The House of Single Rums.
Was it the House of Single? Yeah, the House of Pure Single Rums. So they basically track down barrels, rum from different distilleries, and they bring together. They do special releases, and they're generally, they range from $45 to, I've seen it as high as $150. But then you have to pay $40 in shipping. So if you can get a few guys together and put together an order,
loving this.
Oh
man.
So it's just basically someone with a passion for rum has found really good rums and is releasing them under this brand. And this one's actually from Worthy Park, which is a Jamaican rum distillery. Mm-hmm. And it was distilled in 2005. It's 10 years old. And a good thing for you to talk, I know that sometimes you guys like to talk about deception. You guys should talk about fake age statements in rum, because there's a lot, it's rampant. And look at the Angel share. What does it say? More than what, 64%?
Yeah.
So in 10 years, the rum that was put together for this batch, 64% of it simply evaporated, just went away.
Wow.
And that's 10 years. So how do you come up with a 30-year-old rum or a 20-year-old
Right.
rum?
How do you even do it?
Yeah. And
with that much evaporation.
And there's a long story behind that, but either way, it's a phenomenal rum. And I talk about them constantly, but I'm a big fan of them, and I definitely encourage people, if you've ever had a good rum, a great place to start is Habitation Vellier.
Well, I will just try to size this up quickly in the waning seconds of the show. It's a big mouthful.
Oh yeah.
It's got huge flavors. It's got huge burn. It's got huge presence. And it's just absolutely, like, it's one of those things, this will not be denied. I'll be tasting this for the rest of the day. Like, it's just, this will be in my senses for the rest of the day. It's fantastic. It really is good.
Cask strength, it's 57.8%, so it's a little less than the Balcones, but you can't get it here. It is cask strength.
Kris Hart, you never disappoint, my friend.
It's early in the day for this,
Yes,
but
it is.
I appreciate you guys having me out here.
Appreciate doing this, and appreciate you coming in and helping to pinch hit while Ian is away on assignment. Ian will be back with us in a couple of weeks, and next week we are excited about and bringing in our special guest, Trey Boring from the Cigar Rights of America Association. He's going to help us help you help cigars. That's what it's going to be all about for next week. So we're looking forward to that. Plus, in 2 weeks, the Light Beer Blind Taste Test 2.0 returns. So we're excited about that as well. Kris, thank you again. Please say hi to our friend Yuante.
I'll let him know.
It is time to get together and drink soon with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
thanks for having me out. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always is.
Appreciate it, and we'll do this again very soon. Have a great week, and my friends, we'll send this one out to Ian. Cheers.
Cheers, Ian. Miss you, buddy. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Always fun.
Thank you. That
Drink
was
quite a bit.
Yes.
Wow.
I got to tell you, this is just outstanding.
It's so good.
Oh my God!
Look how there are a few natural biases that we develop, and aesthetics is one of them. And that to me looks like a refreshing glass of orange juice. Like
yes, it totally does.
So it kind of, right off the bat, from an aesthetic point of view, makes you think crisp, refreshing,
yes,
thirst quenching,
yeah. and kind of like impacting the senses.
It manipulates your emotions before you even taste it.
Yes, yes. But that's so weird because I'm just not expecting a beer to look like
that. What is there anything left? You can, you know what? I'll get another one to you because I want Ian to taste. I'm sure he has. Ian's in the beer scene, but
we've never talked about this though, so he might not have.
You want to say bye to Facebook?
Yeah, bye
Facebook,
guys.
Thank you guys.
Where am I looking? Here? Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks,
you
guys.
got that one. I got this one. Facebook. What up? Have a great day.